Have you ever thought about how much of your unhappiness comes from always wanting to be in charge? I'm not simply talking about things that are beyond my control, like employment, money, and everyday activities. I'm also talking about control over yourself. The strong want to know everything. What will happen tomorrow, who you are, what you want, and where you're going. People have told you to look for clear answers as if life were a math problem. But this need for assurance is keeping you from what you really want, which is tranquility. This is the fact that not many people are brave enough to face. You can be fatigued from trying to forecast what will happen and making plans that fall apart at the first sign of trouble. You could be stuck in a state of concern where every question is a threat and the unknown feels like an enemy that needs to be overcome. What if the problem isn't the doubt then? What if you're the cancer because you won't let it go? The French philosopher Michel de Montaigne knew this in the 1600s, long before any of us did. He did something totally different from what everyone else was doing, which was hunting for dogmas, absolute truths, and closed systems. He stared at himself. He was brave enough to write about his own thoughts, concerns, and weaknesses in an open and honest way. He didn't do it because he felt he knew the solutions, but because he had learned how to deal with them better. You need to let go of the things you can't change and develop a new connection with them. This film is about a new way to live your life that is more fun and brave. I want to use Montaigne's wise remarks to teach you that when you stop being afraid of the unknown, things get better. The anxiety starts to go away. The stress goes down. For the first time in a long time, things start to appear easier. But be careful. This ease of life doesn't come from the outside. There isn't a change in the world. There is a change in you. It's time to start. Stop thinking that you're in command and come with me. Not to find solutions, but to learn how to live in a new way. Are you ready? This trip is different from everything else you've learned since it starts with the phrase, "I do know," and that's okay. Montaigne was different from other thinkers. He didn't strive to make the universe obey logical principles, become a preacher, or build sophisticated systems. He wrote from deep inside himself. While sitting in his library, where it was quiet, and there were books, Michel de Montaigne opted to study the most unstable and odd thing in the world. The things he writes aren't essays. They're more like windows. He didn't want to convince you of anything. He wanted you to ponder, wonder, question, and go inside yourself without fear, or even though you are afraid. Montaigne thought that there were no universal truths, whereas other philosophers looked for them. He learnt that not knowing much about the world or even less about himself was not a bad thing. It was a rare thing that he learned as he lived. He always asked himself, "What do I know?" Not to be rude, but as a beginning point, because for him, admitting he didn't know something wasn't a sign of intellectual failure. It let them go. It meant stopping the act of pretending and wearing masks. It took away the stress of having to be perfect, whole, and impossible to get through. This kind of humility isn't accepted in today's culture. Everyone needs to have an opinion or a stand on everything these days, and their beliefs need to be as strong as knives. But Montaigne lets us be human before we are smart. He believed that being weak, having doubts, and having inconsistencies were not flaws that needed to be corrected, but crucial pieces of what made us fully living. And maybe that's exactly what you need to hear right now. That you don't have to believe things that aren't true to be good anymore. That you don't have to know everything to get successful, and that it's good to not have everything. Montaigne was allowed to modify his mind. He lied in his own words. He said that what he thought yesterday might not be true now. He could tell that the mind changes, adapts, and shapes itself on its own. Instead of battling it, he accepted it with kindness, humor, and surprise. He recognized that life wasn't about having the best ideas and taking over the world. It was more about living with an open mind and a kind heart. That's why Montaigne is so crucial right now. He talks quietly when everyone else is yelling. He explains how to enjoy doubt in a time when things are challenging. When you feel lost, it might be challenging to be someone who is stable, clear, and immutable. You might not need guidance, you might need freedom. The ability to be, to alter, and to not know. Montaigne accomplishes more than just this. He also informs us what will happen if we don't answer the question, because trying to control life causes more pain. That's what we're going to speak about now. the anguish that comes from attempting to manage something that can't be controlled. Click the subscribe button to follow the podcast if you agree with what is being said. Thanks for your help. You always want to be the boss, don't you? Tomorrow, how other people act, your job, your body, your feelings, and even things that aren't your fault. And the more you try to control life, the faster it slips away from you. It's like squeezing water so hard that it rushes away. Have you considered about how much this will cost you? This urge for control is not only tiring, it's also bad for you. It keeps you from reaching your goals and continually makes you worry about what could go wrong. This is what fear means. Anxiety is just the worry of what could happen. It's the need for promises in a reality that doesn't keep them. A lot of individuals are always on alert, attempting to plan for every turn in the road as if it could avert the accidents of the mind. But Montaigne knew something that contemporary psychology soon confirmed. Trying to foresee what will happen in the future is like being at odds with what is actual. So you see, suffering doesn't solely stem from negative things that happen to us. A lot of the time it's because we're fighting things that we can't change. You want things in life to be different. It means not allowing things go the way they should. Montaigne wrote about this in a way that was so honest it was almost scary. He accepted his sorrow, his losses, and the things he didn't know as normal components of life that couldn't be gotten rid of. He didn't have to battle things anymore after he did that. Have you ever observed that the people that are most controlling are also the most stressed, tired, and inflexible? They don't relax because they worry horrible things will happen if they are not in command all the time. But this approach doesn't protect individuals. It puts them in jail. Montaigne proposed a deliberate surrender, not a feeble resignation, but a courageous acknowledgement that the universe is not subservient to you and that your intellect must learn to flow rather than dominate. This is where the awful irony comes in. The more you try to control things, the angrier you get. And the more angry you are, the more you want to be in charge. You get stuck in a cycle that will kill you. What do you receive from it? A body that is strained, a mind that is exhausted, and a soul that is at peace. Montaigne shows us another route. It's not about being in charge of everything. It's about being able to deal with the things you can't change. But how does that function in real life? What can you do to learn how to deal with the uncertainty without getting lost in it? The solution is in how Montaigne lived. He always thought about himself, not to condemn himself harshly, but to really listen to himself. People wanted to know what was going on in the world, but Montaigne went into isolation to find out what was going on inside him. He didn't discover clarity immediately away. Instead, he found a storm. He chose to deal with things directly, such fears, inconsistencies, conflicted wants, and urges that no one can explain. He did this without criticizing, but as someone who listens. Montaigne was clever because he was daring enough to be a live experiment of what it is to be human. He didn't only think up ideas about the mind, he made himself a topic to study, and his work became a mirror. He doesn't write like a teacher. Instead, he writes like someone who shares a process. He writes down his thoughts so that the reader can do the same. He didn't wish to change people's minds. They were free. Montaigne writes about his own doubts, innermost aspirations, changes of heart, and even weak moments for the first time. This tells us that you don't have to be right all the time. You just need to be with yourself. One of the best methods to learn about yourself is to always watch yourself without any filters or masks. But be careful. You shouldn't be hard on yourself when you look at yourself. When you look inside, you need to learn how to be honest and gentle to yourself. It's about figuring out when you're lying to yourself, when you're pretending to know something you don't, and when you're trying to keep up a false image of who you are. Montaigne wrote to break free from these shackles. "I am human, and nothing human is alien to me," he remarked. This indicates that everything about you is a real part of who you are, even if it appears unusual or uncomfortable. Do you also know what the best thing about this activity is? It takes away embarrassment. When you really look at yourself, you realize that a lot of your sorrow comes from wanting to be perfect in ways that aren't achievable, like being perfect in your thoughts, feelings, or values. Montaigne says that we are not like statues made of marble. We are imperfect beings who are gloriously broken and adaptable. We can start living a simpler life when we stop resisting who we really are. One key thing to remember is that this understanding does not mean being passive. In fact, it's the first step toward actual change, since only people who can see themselves clearly can really change. You can only get to the light if you accept the dark. But there is one more vital component to this trip. You still have to deal with change when you start to pay attention to yourself. You, other people, and the world are always changing. We will keep hurting unless we accept this truth and learn to live with it. Let's talk about this now. If what you're hearing makes sense to you, my booklet Beyond the Shadow will greatly help you. It breaks down Jung's primary theories and shows you how to learn more about yourself. The reply that was pinned has a link in it. People act like life is a straight line, that they could achieve certain things, be stable, or be successful, and then everything would be okay. It felt as if there was a location where everything would stop changing, feelings would calm down, questions would go away, and everything would make sense. But this myth, which churches, schools, gurus, and even business culture perpetuate, is what hinders us from recognizing the truth and finding serenity. Montaigne had a pretty good idea of this. He understood that life moves in a steady way. Our thoughts alter. We get older. People come and go. We want different things. Our guarantees come apart. There is no way to correct it. There is no guarantee. There is no clear answer. And if you try to live as if life should be predictable, stable, and under your control, you will only wind up angry, sad, and emotionally shattered. Life is all about change, so it's not a mistake. The more we battle it, the more rigid, resentful, and cut off from the moment we become. Montaigne understood that changes are a normal aspect of being human. He realized that being flaky every now and again was a good thing, that it needed guts to change your viewpoint, that getting go of an old notion, even if it led to another one that wasn't obvious, was a step toward clarity. He added in a funny way, constancy is a virtue of mechanical minds. He believed that embracing change was a more fulfilling way to exist than clinging to a fixed identity. Have you thought about how most of your concerns are based on the assumption that things might change? People are scared of losing their employment, their loved ones, or their way of life. But what if you stopped fighting these changes and just saw them as a regular part of life, like Montaigne did? What if you stopped thinking of every change as a failure and instead seeing them as steps toward progress? You don't have to fit in to accept change. You just have to stop fighting against the truth. It means to go with the flow instead of trying to halt it. A lot of people desire to feel lighter, but pushing them to be stable won't help. It comes from being able to let go, change, and start over. Montaigne knew this before it happened. And maybe you're starting to understand it now. Life is always changing, but that doesn't mean everything changes. You need to know how to handle this uncertainty from the inside out. How to stay sane and alive when things are unpredictable, chaotic, and unknown. At this juncture, theory and practice come together, and Montaigne tells us how. The process of creating mental habits and routines that help us handle uncertainty effectively. Philosophy is useless if it doesn't help you in actual life. That was what Montaigne understood. The things he writes aren't just random notions. They are instruments for thinking. He wrote, but not to show off to intellectual people. He did it to learn how to deal with things like being afraid of death, being unhappy, being scared, becoming older, and having a mind that was weakening. And the idea that thinking may help you stay alive may have been the most significant thing Montaigne offered us. That taking time to reflect about your life can help you live it with more courage and fewer pain. But how do you truly deal with not knowing what will happen? You have to do it all the time, like re-educating your mind. And this requires self-control. It's not as rigid as in the military, but it's more like a vow to safeguard your own rights. You have to concentrate on living well with doubt every day. These are some of Montaigne's thoughts that could actually affect how you live your life. First, think about what you know for sure. Take a minute to watch and think about something when you're confident about it. Being very sure is often a strategy to hide fear and avoid the pain of not knowing. That's exactly what Montaigne did. He wasn't terrified, he was just smart enough to distrust his own thoughts. He realized that the most hazardous notion is the one that won't let you change it. Second, make it a habit to ask yourself, write. It doesn't matter if it's a letter, a diary, or a note that will never be sent. Writing down your ideas can help you figure out what's upsetting you. Montaigne wrote much about himself, not because he was proud, but because he wanted to figure himself out, organize his thoughts, and make his mind a nice place to dwell. Third, employ change to help you think clearly. Yes, develop a plan, but be ready to adjust it when things change in your life, which they will. The ultimate strength is being able to change. Don't rely on facts that aren't certain. Instead, learn to move easily, change, adapt, and make new things. Montaigne remarked that a clever person may change with the times. Fourth, learn to make fun of yourself even when you feel weak. You should find humor in yourself. Montaigne was so insightful because he didn't take himself too seriously. He laughed at his own weaknesses, worries, and pride. Being hilarious might help you deal with stress in your life. Also, make time for silence so you may be alone without being interrupted. This is a way of saying, I am human, and that's okay. There is no phone, no excitement, just being there. Montaigne thought that being alone was the ideal thing, not because it was lonely, but because it made things clear. You can hear what you actually think when you're alone. During the pause, the mind changes how it thinks. In that inner space, uncertainty is no longer a threat. Instead, it becomes a space where new possibilities might flourish. This is all extremely strong, but it only makes sense if you know what it's actually for. Freedom. The freedom to be yourself without needing to know everything. Being able to live slowly and not worry about tomorrow. The ability to be yourself. And here is how we will end this journey, with the idea that being okay with doubt gives you inner freedom. Montaigne didn't just want you to survive in chaos. He wanted you to dance with it. In the end, everything you tried so hard to control was out of your hands from the start. Life isn't supposed to fit into your plans or your emotional charts. People will let you down. Things won't go as planned. Things will get better. This is just how things are. It's not a mistake. Montaigne understood this very well, to the point of being uncomfortable. He knew that people don't suffer because things change, but because they don't want to accept that life is flow and not form. When you accept uncertainty, something changes inside you. It doesn't change the world around you. Things start to get easier. Anxiety isn't a big deal anymore. You stop resisting what is and start moving with the flow of what comes your way. This is not giving up, it's being smart. It's growth of the mind, it's being free. Being able to live your life without having to worry about everything. To not have to have a label for every feeling, a rationale for every pain, or a proper way to make every choice. Life doesn't want you to be flawless. It just wants you to be there. What we want so badly is not out there. What it is not is a life with no troubles, a perfect schedule, or a future that has been planned out down to the last detail. It's when you allow yourself not know. It's fine to be honest and say, I don't know everything, and that's okay. That's where real peace starts. The tranquility that comes from inside and doesn't depend on what's going on. Montaigne taught us that accepting our folly makes us more human and free. If you've gotten this far, it implies you're ready to stop trying to control everything, breathe more easily, and live your life more honestly. So, what part of you still doesn't want to confront the unknown? How do you feel when you can't see what's going to happen? Please leave a remark below. How did this thought make you feel? I read every review very carefully, and I know that someone will be able to relate to your tale. This talk is quite good. If this voyage has made sense to you, please keep going. The next movie is highly essential and will go into even more detail regarding what we talked about here. Sign up for the channel, put on the volume, and most importantly, don't stop now. The first step is already done. Don't stop, this route is yours.